Chapter 10, basic problem number 1, and I'll take a look at number 2, which of course is nearly identical. The terms obviously will be a little bit different, and in this case we're going to be talking about bonds and bond values. And what are bonds? Well, bonds are typically a corporation's method, although the U.S. government too, method of financing or borrowing money. Years and years and years ago, big corporations realized that they didn't need to go to the bank, and use that intermediary to borrow money, that they could simply do it themselves by issuing bonds, debt instruments. And government likewise has done that, obviously, for quite some time now. Okay, well, bonds, we often think if I were to lend, technically that's what you'd be doing. If I were to lend Microsoft $10,000 at 4% interest, that's what it's worth, right? It's $10,000. Except that those things are subject to fluctuations based on current interest rate markets. And one thing I'll try to make clear as we go through this too is that the bond prices are always inversed to current rates. Okay, so if rates have come down, the bond price has gone up. If rates have gone up, the bond price has gone down. So as an example, if a bond was issued at a 3% rate and current rates are now 5%, that bond is worth less money. Okay, if it was a $1,000 bond, for example, then it's worth something less than the $1,000, because why would I invest in that bond, okay, at 3% if I could go into the marketplace and get 5%, right? And so as an investor, I'd look at that and say, I don't want to pay $1,000 to invest in that bond. I want to get a yield that's comparable to that 5%. So what's it worth, right? And that's what we're going to figure out here. The other thing that we do here is we add another variable. When we're doing a lot of these things, remember I've said if you have 3 variables, you can calculate the fourth. In this case, we have 4 variables, and we're calculating a fifth, but otherwise the mechanics remain very much the same. So let's take a look. If you look at number 2, it says Midland Oil has $1,000 par value bonds outstanding at 8% interest. So I'll just go ahead and start putting in my stuff. I got par value. Now you'll see here I've got yield and payment. I put the yield over here, and I'll show you why in a second, why that's in a different column. The bonds will mature in 25 years. Okay, so my number of periods is 25. Okay, compare the current price of the bonds if the present yield to maturity is 7%. So if current rates is basically what it's saying, or I've called that a market rate. Okay, so this bond was issued at 8%. Current rates are 7% according to number A anyhow, if I'm looking at 2A. Okay, so it should be worth more then, right? Okay, because current rates, if I were an investor and went into the marketplace, the best I could hope for now would be to get a bond that would pay 7%. But you're offering a bond that's paying 8%. I'm going to have to pay a little bit more on the front end. Okay, how much more? Well, that's what we're going to calculate then, right? Okay. So I'll hit delete and we'll just kind of figure that out. Now the reason I do this is because when this says yield, the way bonds usually work is that GE or Microsoft or whomever will issue a bond. Let's say it's $1,000 par value. I think most of them are $10,000, but $1,000 works fine. And it's got an 8% yield on it. Then they're going to pay out that 8% in interest payment each year, and then at maturity they're going to pay you this $1,000. And that's important to know, that at maturity they're going to pay you this $1,000. Think of that then also as a future value. Okay, so that's a par value. It's also a future value because I'm going to get that back, right? I'm going to determine here what I'm going to have to pay for that, but I'm going to get back that $1,000 plus $80 a year in interest. Okay, and let me show you an example here. This is GE, right? And GE has lots of debts. This little bubble thing here, a lot of them come due here, but they got some way the heck out here, right? Kind of interesting, and you can scroll down and see, it's kind of interesting. Here they've got one that matures next March. It originally had a 4.25% coupon rate. That's what they call that, but its price is a little over par. Now they price all these, basically call that a percent, maybe 101.9%. So on $1,000 you'd pay $1,019 then, okay, to purchase this, which because it comes due in relatively short order here, you'd only get a coupon payment or two on a quarterly basis, right? The yield to maturity is very small, something like you would expect to get in the bank, right? Okay, not much better than that, but GE would be considered, very, very safe. Gotta go up. I wonder if it has its rating on here. Morningstar credit rating doesn't say. It's got the 3 stars up there, but that doesn't really tell us much. But anyhow, back to our problem. Okay, so we're gonna, and what I have here is we're gonna solve for the present value. That's what we want to know, is what's the value of this $1,000 bond today. And so I've just got my space there, and I'll click on that, and I'm gonna go here and find under financial, present value. There we go. Okay, now I've got my variables, right? My variables are in here. Okay, my rate is, do I use the 8% that it was issued at? No, I use the current market rate, right? Which is 7%. My number of periods is 25 years. Okay, I do have a payment here, right? And my payment's based on that 8%, but my payment is $80. Okay, and I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to enter that in as a negative number. I'm going to leave that as a positive number, because the only thing that's going out of my pocket right now is what I'm paying for. I'm going to get back everything else. I'll get back the $80 payments, and I'll get back the $1,000 in the future. Okay, and that's why that $1,000 then becomes my future value. So again, 4 variables. Gosh, too bad I didn't keep them right in order. Could have gone C4, C3, C2, C1, but well. So what I'd have to pay for that is $1,116.54, and that makes sense, right? Because rates have come down, the value of the bond has gone up. Okay, even though that's showing as a negative, and that's fine. You can show yours as a negative. Again, that's what's leaving my pocket. Okay, if you did it the other way, that would be fine as well. If you listed this par value as a negative, you'd also have to list the payment as a negative and come up with a positive value there. Okay, and how would I do here? Oh, I think I just did the present value, because I think it asks for that maybe in the future. That's kind of interesting. I got the 7%. I got the number of periods. And what I did was the present value of the difference in the payments, basically, and that came up with $116.54. You guys don't need to do that. Okay, second one then goes the opposite way, and so let's take a look at that. And that is that if it's 10%, okay, what's wrong with copying and pasting your stuff down here? Nothing, right? And then you enter in again the yield payment from the first thing. My market rate's now 10%, okay, versus that, so I can go present value, right? Rate is 10%, number of periods 25, payments $80, future value 1,000. So now, because current rates are 10%, I would expect that this 8% bond would be worth less money. Okay, and it is. I have no idea what I did here, because that's the same as up there. The payments here would actually be $20 difference, and I've got 10 for whatever reason. Change that. 233, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, so just ignore that. Then it asks you to do a C, which is the same, and I won't belabor you with showing you how to do that again. Again, you could copy and paste your formula down and plug in the right number. So there you have it, a little bit of background plus help for problem number 1.